He is Devin McCourty, NBC Football Night in America studio analyst. He was on site with the Sunday night crew, Vikings and the Lions. Worst loss you ever had in college was what?
My freshman year, we lost to Louisville 55 to like 5. We had a safety that was sprinkled in there. It was something like that.
What's that feel like?
You hear the song that they play on kickoff a lot throughout the game. And I still remember it was a Young Jeezy song, and they would always play boom, boom, clap. And we heard that a lot that night. So you get used to hearing that song when you get blown out.
What was the atmosphere like in Detroit?
Oh, it was awesome. I think even in pregame warmups of each kind of wave of guys that come out, first the returners come out, the crowd goes nuts. Then the skill positions, then ultimately Jared Goff came out and they went nuts. And what I love though is every time somebody from the Vikings came out, it was just nonstop boos. And I think like you could feel it before the game started of the impact the crowd was going to have in the game.
Well, that's what I was curious about, that they have home field advantage throughout in the NFC. But how much of an advantage is it to Detroit? Is there any other place that compares, like Kansas City, that home field advantage?
Yeah, Kansas City, I think Buffalo, like those teams that, for one, your fan base is intense, they're loud, but I think they get an advantage too of playing in the cold. Now, depending on who comes there, like we saw last year when Miami had to go to Kansas City and playing that historically cold game, you don't have a shot. And I think Detroit's advantage is being in that dome gets loud and it gets rocking, and those people are intense. I just talked to Mike Florio on Pro Football Talk on the podcast. They went and did their podcast Monday morning, him and Chris Sims. They still could smell the beer. Like those people had a great time in there. So it's a tough place to play.
What's it like to play in a quiet stadium?
You hear all the checks. You think about, defenses and, honestly, it's fun for defense when you're out there and you can hear what the offense checks and you can hear yourselves. Usually, like if you're at home and those kind of big time matchups and the crowd's going crazy, making it hard for the offense, you have to remember as a defense, you got to get used to making your calls and stuff with that noise. But when you're out there and it's silent, the energy's tough sometimes, but you get the advantage of really hearing everything the offense is trying to check and get to.
I guess there's usually one surprise firing every cycle. I thought Jerod Mayo was a surprise. I don't know how you felt, but one and done in New England, your reaction?
Yeah, I got the opportunity to go up to the press conference, and I remember being in that moment of how special it was. A guy I got an opportunity to play with, a guy that I think for that franchise as the number 10 pick, came in and did so many things and ultimately was a great leader for the organization. So when he was named head coach, I was so excited. I thought he would get an opportunity to really grow into that role. Not much experience in coaching overall, but I thought he would get the opportunity to grow, and he didn't. And for me, it was a reminder of this league of I don't care how awesome the story is, the personal relationships and all that. When you get in and you're a head coach, they're looking for a certain thing. They're looking for wins. They're looking for the alignment and what the vision looks like. And ultimately the Crafts felt like it wasn't there and they moved on from Jerod. But, I think down the end, it wasn't surprising. But if I think back to the beginning, no way I thought that it would even be a thought of him being one and done as a head coach.
But how can he be the coach in waiting for 5 years but not be ready for this moment, according to Robert Kraft?
Yeah, I mean, you look at that press conference yesterday, and he said, I think he has all the skills to be a great head coach someday. And that, to me, was why you named him head coach, is you thought somebody else would get to take advantage of that, and they only give him 1 year. I think is really tough, and I think back to Jimmy Johnson spoke to our team my rookie year, and he said, the NFL is not about fair. You're going to get an opportunity, and that's all you can ask for. And, honestly, it wasn't fair for Jerod Mayo to think he would have everything buttoned up in year one, but that's the reality of the NFL.
Devin McCourty, Football Night in America analyst, and Wild Card Weekend, NBC and Peacock will bring you the Commanders at the Buccaneers. Better season turned in by Jaden Daniels or Baker Mayfield?
Oh, I think you got to go Jaden Daniels just because a little bit of what Baker's doing was expected. I think Baker in Tampa has been a beautiful fit, and he showed that he can be, one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Jaden Daniels took over a Washington team that we thought even with him, they would struggle this year. And you look up and they're in the playoffs. Like they're going to be in the playoffs playing an opportunity to advance. That just wasn't expected. And the truth is, it's all because of Jaden Daniels as their best player.
The Eagles situation is interesting, and I think it's being undersold, and that is Jalen Hurts in concussion protocol here. Have you ever been in concussion protocol?
Actually, my first time being in concussion protocol, I don't want to say it was the same, but it was similar into what Jalen Hurts is going through and the process was a little different, but I had passed certain tests. So I was able to practice, but I didn't pass a test yet to be able to have contact. So I had got a concussion, missed the last week of the season. Then we had the playoff bye week. So I didn't practice the last week of the season, but the playoff bye week, I was cleared to be able to practice, but still was non-contact. And then ultimately to get out of protocol, I had to get an MRI of my brain to be fully out of the concussion protocol. So it was a whole process and more of a process than normal when we think about concussion protocol. So I felt a little bit of what he's going through now.
If you were Mike McCarthy and you had an opportunity to leave the Cowboys, let's say the Bears' job is legitimate. He's going to be a free agent, and I don't know if there's any rush for Jerry to, sign him. They could have done this. He's been a lame duck coach, but it's hard to pass on being the Cowboys' head coach, but sometimes you want to get out from underneath Jerry Jones and that star.
That Cowboys head coaching job is hard to turn down until you've been in it for 5 years. And I think Mike McCarthy knows exactly what it feels like and what it is to be in that job. So I think it'll be telling if he does want to go on these interviews that he is seeking to see what it feels like and what it could look like somewhere else. And the Bears, they had to see it firsthand when he was coaching the Green Bay Packers. So there might be a little bit of an infatuation of Mike McCarthy and what he was able to do. And he might want some breathing room from being on that kind of soap opera box that the Cowboys give you every year you're in that position.
We're going to have a road team, at least one road team win this weekend with these games. Give me the surprise this weekend.
The surprise, I would say, and I know it's a little harder because of Jordan Love's injury and Christian Watson being done, but I just think the Green Bay Packers, they're one of those teams that are a little inconsistent. You don't always know what you're going to get, but if they can get hot and they can get going, they have a Jeff Hafley, their defensive coordinator, has different kind of looks and disguises that they can give you. They're going to play an Eagles team that comes off a week where they're resting. So they might be a little bit of a slow start getting back into the feel of things that I think Green Bay could surprise Philadelphia. I think Philadelphia is a better team and should win, but I wouldn't be surprised if Green Bay could get it going in Philadelphia.
Pittsburgh has problems with Baltimore. Why?
Ultimately, I think Baltimore is a better football team. I think we fell in love with what Russ was able to do, took over Pittsburgh. They went on a little winning streak. But I think what we saw, what Baltimore is able to do over these last few weeks, that's their team. And I think they're playing their best ball right now. And I think Pittsburgh, they're just not. The inabilities of the offense to get the ball down the field consistently, to be able to pick up short gains and drive and have 10 to 12 play drives, like that's not what they do well. So when you're relying on the deep ball nonstop, and if Pickens doesn't come out and have a big game, then that just leaves you so handicapped that I think Baltimore has so much firepower that you can't really play that way. But I will say, these two teams, they battle, and each time they play, it seems like the game goes a different way. So it's a scary game a little bit for Baltimore playing a divisional opponent in the playoffs.
What if Bill Belichick called you and said, would you join me on my staff at North Carolina?
I would ultimately think about it, and then I would think about my wife killing me. So I would have to say, Bill, I love you, respect you so much, but coaching's just not going to be in my future.
Okay. What advice would you give if Bill Belichick said, come down and talk to my players, I'm not going to be in the room? What would you say?
I would tell them prepare for something that won't be easy, but prepare for a chance to be, one thing, a champion in college, but ultimately an opportunity to be the best football player you could be. And for some of them, that's going to be in the NFL. You're going to learn things about the game of football that are going to travel with you far after your career. I mean, I'm doing TV primarily because I sat in team meeting rooms for 13 years and heard the most brilliant mind and Bill Belichick talk about the game of football. I know about situations that I've never known, offense, special teams, defense, because of all the things he hit about, over my 13 years in football. And for those young guys, like, that won't leave you. There's life lessons in there. There's everything. So I think ultimately you want to be a winner and be the best version of yourself. Get an opportunity to play for Bill Belichick. That's going to give you that.
Did you ever want to punch him?
I mean, how many times would be the question? I remember my rookie year, we went 9 straight days of full pads in practice and training camp. You can't do that anymore, but that's what we did my rookie year in training camp. Like, we were ready to go by the time the season started.
Good to talk to you again. Have fun in the postseason. Thank you, Devin.
Always fun talking to you, Dan.
Devin McCourty, Football Night in America analyst, and Wild Card Weekend. Commanders and the Buccaneers, NBC and Peacock. Coverage will begin on Sunday night at 7:30 Eastern. Football Night in America kicks off at 8.